What are the roles that you have as a CSO for a company like Samplify? And if possible, preface it with telling us in a shorthand what Samplify does, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So Samplify is a relatively new company. So we are 12 months, just over 12 months old. It is an evolution of a company I used to have. We merged in the summer of last year. And we have spent our time understanding how hard it is to work in a large company. If you work in procurement, if you work in IT, because of the complexity of software. So anyone who works in any company, I'm sure you've got lots of software. If you work in a larger organization, you're going to have an outrageous amount of software. I mean, potentially thousands and thousands of different tools. And at that level of complexity, what we see is people just buy more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's not because they need more. But it's not because they need more. It's basically that it's really hard for humans to comprehend what they've already purchased and all the capabilities that they have. So on some things, it's obvious that you've already got a tool that does the same thing. But because people are great at marketing, it's easy sometimes for the employee to explain why that particular tool has some special feature that only that tool has, and we have to have it or I can't do my job. And so you see that typed again. And everyone, as you mentioned at the start, everyone's very, very busy. So if you work in procurement for a large organization, you'll run off your feet. You don't have time to really go head to head with someone who's really passionate about buying something on every single occasion. And so stuff slips through the net and expands. So what we have done.
I was just going to say, like, what I find interesting there is, like, it feels like people, look, I'm in marketing. We market for our clients, we market for ourselves. So I get the point. The thing I like about your statement, and I feel like was kind of left out, is the FOMO, right? Hey, we're marketed this amazing tool, fear of missing out. If we don't have it, it's gonna go down. Shit's gonna happen. We're not gonna make it. We're not gonna get our targets. We need to have this because there's nothing else that can get us there, right? And that's the thing where I feel like a lot of people make that decision emotionally and not data driven. And I'm laying a bridge for you, and I'm passing you the stick right now, but I think that's where you're going towards. So.
Yeah, it's not. I think nearly every single purchase is emotional. I think it's just that's how we act as humans. But yeah, in the world of software, products are built to play to that, as you say, be it FOMO, be it exclusivity, be it improving your ability to perform. And what we have done, we have built a unique way to understand all of your software. So we studied for a long time how humans try and do this. We spent nearly 10 years looking at what they're doing. And we saw that the main thing you need to understand is the capabilities of each tool. And at the same time, one of the hardest things to understand is the capabilities of any tool. And the reason it's hard is one, all of the marketing jargon. So like, for example, I've got an iPhone, so I've got FaceTime. You've got a Samsung, you don't have FaceTime. And it's like, and obviously we all know that they're the same thing. But as you move into the world of software, it becomes less obvious that you're talking about the same thing. Like, is Looker ML, is that the same as something that Power BI has? Or is it very different? Is it a unique thing? And so the more complicated the software, the more sophisticated the marketing, the harder it is genuinely for someone to tell the difference. And that's where we come in by using a combination of agents, machine learning, and artificial intelligence to create like a superhuman that we call Sam, who is whatever sex you'd like. Well, it's not Sam Altman, no, although I'm sure he would love it. It's actually much better than what Sam Altman's built, because Sam Altman has built a wonderful thing, obviously in ChatGPT, but as anyone who uses it will know, it makes stuff up all the time. So when you're doing the work that we're doing, you have to minimize hallucinations. You have to be, and yet AI isn't generally. And so we've spent our time and our expertise in that area. So we've actually got people who used to work on missile defense and autonomous cars, because in those two areas, hallucinations are not really something that you can allow. Exactly.
Okay, so essentially you've got superstar scientists, essentially mad scientists, maybe even working at the company, making sure the AI behaves. Which it's everything is getting a little bit better. We can see, um, Claude's getting better at listening. GPT-5 is it literally had an issue of listening too much. So I'm happy to see that progression. But you see everybody struggling with it, and in every layer of every app, coaching the AI is the biggest issue. So I'd love to jump into that at a later point. I have another question for you first, which is, you mentioned that you've studied people for the past 10 years and how they buy software, how they purchase software. And obviously you said one thing, that is emotion is a big driver. But what are the patterns? What are the things that people can look towards? And also as a self-respect, a little bit retrospective self-reflection. Hey, maybe this is something I'm doing and I should be aware of it, whether you're a viewer or a listener to this podcast.
Well, I suppose the first thing is, I suppose you've got to understand that you are definitely being manipulated in every software purchase that you make. And I think people underestimate that. I also think there's, especially when it comes to enterprise software, when you talk about large corporations, there are lots of additional human factors that are involved in a purchase like that. It could be that you have a procurement partner that buys for you. They're going to have an agenda. It could be that you're working with a consulting firm who are advising you. They're going to have an agenda. It could be that it's the end of the month and the guy just needs to sell some stuff. They're going to have an agenda. And I think it's really important that people take the time to do POVs. And oftentimes, I think people rush through the process, getting a bit too excited. I think doing a really solid proof of value or proof of concept is an important part of every procurement decision, and it can be skipped. But I think also doing it over a significant enough time where you can actually see that it really works is an important part of it as well. And it sounds really obvious, and it's like, surely everyone does do that, but I think no, they don't. And also, if you come to the table already deciding to buy something before you even try it, you're going to make sure that it gets through your test. So I think it's, again, having a level of, I suppose the problem is, I mean, we as humans do things for lots of motivational reasons. 9 times out of 10, I think when you're working for a large company, the motivation is not, how can I best serve the corporation? I think the reality is, in every decision, is how can I best serve myself? And then how can I best serve the corporation? And so I think it is always going to be messy. What we have done is build a system that can give you the sort of truth, the facts, so that at least you can make an informed decision about whether or not you need this thing. You can compare it to what you already have. We can tell you if you already have a tool that can do that.
Let's say you're not in a position yet to get something like Samplify, whether that's internal politics or whatsoever. What are ways that you can maybe prevent yourself, or your let's say you're a CEO and you have people that are doing this, your marketing department screaming for something new. What are ways that you can potentially reflect and say, hey, is this actually needed? You already mentioned one thing, which is actually roll out a pilot, try it out first, see if it actually adds value. Are there any other buying decisions that will prevent you? How can I make sure that I don't sit opposite to a salesperson and be like, yeah, I actually need this, and be desperate? And that's one. Another thing might be, how can I make sure that do you need to compare? Is there is there a need for it? How do I compare if I need to also pilot it? I don't have the resources for it. Are there anything you can answer or give guidance into that sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think one thing to bear in mind is that my product is only 50,000 a year. So if you have a company and that you're turning over more than a few million and you're spending more than a few million on software, we're a really good value choice. But say, for example, you're a company that doesn't spend more than $1 million a year on software, and you're thinking, well, how can I manage this myself? I think time is the honest answer. The thing that we do is we accelerate the time it takes. So, for example, we worked on a project with Deloitte, and they told us we saved them a year of time on one project. I mean, a year. We saved them a year. It's mind-blowing. So the thing that you've got to bear in mind is, as the CEO, as the head of the department, you're going to have to do a cost-benefit analysis, and you're maybe do it on the back of a fag packet, but you're going to think, is it worth me spending X amount of my time to truly evaluate if we have a tool like this and if we need this tool? And the problem is, we see that people decide the answer to that is no. Like 9 times out of 10, they do. But to answer your question, to stop it happening, the answer to that has to be yes. It is worth my time to do this.
Why do you think it's a no? And what can you say to people to convince them to make it a yes?
Well, we don't need to convince someone to make it a yes because they can just buy Samplify and we do all the work for them. But so that solves that problem. But it basically, if you're unfortunate enough not to have Samplify and therefore you have to do this yourself, I think you have to look at the business. So the things that happen when you buy a new piece of software, one, you spend more money than you potentially needed to because you're buying a completely new tool. So you've got to spin up all the resources to bring that into the system. Instead of spinning up one more license, you're bringing in a whole new system. So that's expensive to do. Two, you're creating a security vulnerability. You're creating another thing that's touching all of your systems, which you didn't have to do. So three, you're creating an inefficiency between coworkers. So I work on BI tool A in marketing, you work on BI tool B in sales. We sound like we're talking about the same thing because the numbers sound similar, but we're actually talking about different things and nobody notices for 6 months. Those sort of things are some of the hidden costs to bringing in tools that you don't need when you already have a tool that does the job. So inefficiency in workflow, inefficiency information passing between different departments, security vulnerabilities, and more importantly, just time. Like a whole host of different people in the company have to bring in this new tool, security, legal, IT, the particular department, instead of spin up a new license. It's a completely different proposition. Even just licensing and onboarding another company is, for most organizations, a pain in the butt. It's another thing you have to remember every year that you have to renew or not renew. So there's lots of really great reasons that people don't initially see as to why you want to keep your footprint as small as possible. I also think like some of the things are subtle. The differences are subtle. We've had lots of occasions where we've met with clients who have pieces of software because, let's say, Sean joins the company, he comes in as head of marketing, and he's obsessed with HubSpot. So he tells everybody, I can't work in this company unless we bring in HubSpot. So they go away and they bring in HubSpot. Sean leaves the company. They've still got HubSpot. And so there are loads of things that happen like that where you're just like, oh my goodness, yes, it's important that this person is supported. Yes, it's important that this person is engaged, but they're working for your company. They're not working for their company. And so you have to be strong sometimes in the tool usage and set of tools.